I am excited and delighted for you to be here. Thank you that the Almighty has blessed and endorsed our time together. Well, this is the place where we believe it is a gateway. It's the gateway to uncovering the infinite power within. So if you've landed at the right place at the right time, then I want you to prepare to evolve, transform, and ascend. Please don't forget, whatever you do, to follow me on the various social media platforms under the name at AG Green Now, at AG Green Now, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. I also want you to continue to watch this particular channel you're watching me on, especially on YouTube, which is the Divine You podcast channel, where we have this podcast and various other excerpts of teachings that we put here on this platform. But again, I can also be followed on at AG Green Now. Today we have an interesting subject for you. We're going to be talking about shifting or shift your reality. These are my kinds of subjects. They're in my wheelhouse. I love discussing these things. And I'm going to kind of kick off a two-part series with us on today. And I want to start with a quote. And the quote says, "Rule your mind or it will rule you." End quote. Horace. Rule your mind or it will rule you. What's interesting about this quote from Horace is the mind, of course, is the centerpiece of our conversation today, of what we will be discussing, kind of in a lightweight way, what reality is and how to shift reality. And I'm letting you know my notes for these lessons are actually coming from a blog that I'm about to release. I believe it's an 8-part blog that's going to be dealing with uh, reality and how to shift it. Okay. So it's actually entitled Reality, the Art of Seeing, Shaping, and Becoming. So we have the wonderful quote from Horace, "Rule your mind or it will rule you," which is very relevant because we're going to continue in our conversation even beyond these two parts that I'm preparing for you now about what is reality. What is consciousness? How does consciousness play a role in reality itself? I encourage you, if you're religious, to turn off your religious mind and turn on your spiritual one, because this is a conversation for those who are open to a God who is transcendent of all religious experiences and all religious presentations and all religious prisms and all religious viewpoints. The great mystic, one of the greatest mystics I believe of all time, is Neville Goddard. And he said, "The world you see is an outward picture of an inward condition." Oh my goodness. In other words, what you perceive or see or know or understand as reality that you think is external to you is really a projection of what's inside of you, as it is a projection of what's inside of all of us who form a great link in terms of collective consciousness. The great Albert Einstein said, "Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one." End quote. In our future discussions, today's discussion and future discussions, um, we're all on a spiritual journey as well as a soul journey. And on this journey, we are going to be exposed to a myriad of viewpoints as it relates to everything, including who and what you are, the origins of our species, as well as some very vibrant, necessary existential questions as it relates to who and what reality is right now. A lot of times people think that there's a creator that is responsible for the creation and construction of reality as we know it. And we, at times, from the biblical text and other texts, extrapolate these beliefs and cause them to become core beliefs. But what I really want people to understand is that reality, the very fabric of what we experience, believe, and respond to, is painted stroke by stroke upon the vast living canvas of consciousness. Reality, as you know it, emanates from consciousness. I've been saying something similar to this in the next statement I'm going to make for years. I was a pastor for 25 years. Now I'm more of a spiritual metaphysical teacher. And the sum total of the thoughts you think and the feelings you feel and the assumptions you and I hold are creators of reality. You right now are what you think, imagine, and speak yourself as or speak yourself to be. It's as simple as that. A lot of times we try and absolve ourselves from our contribution to reality and put the onus on an omnipotent being. When the truth be told, we are active participants, collaborators, and partners with the infinite, with the divine, with the source, with God. We are partners. Undoubtedly, you decided whether you felt you had an unction or leading to watch or listen today, or whether it was a thought you formed within yourself. You made the decision to think the thought. You also made the decision to act on the thought. You're going to make the decision when the broadcast is over what you eat and who you will talk to. That's reality creation. You've been empowered by the creator as a sentient being, a spiritual being that is sentient, that has vast powers beyond its knowledge, to make choices, and in these choices create and co-create reality with the creator. So I want you to begin understanding that consciousness is the groundwork and the framework of everything. And our perceptions are the brush, or seem like the brush that makes the picture on the canvas, that paints on the canvas of consciousness. So you and I right now, what we perceive to be is reality for us. I'm going to say it again. What we perceive to be is reality for us. So for a few minutes, let's talk about consciousness. This has been debated by philosophers, scientists, mystics, and so forth and so on for a long time. Psalm 90 and 2 says, "Beloved, the mountains were born, or you brought forth the world from everlasting to everlasting. You are God." I believe that God is the ultimate creator of consciousness, is consciousness itself, and created us. Therefore, we are conscious beings connected to one stream of consciousness. But it emanates and begins what I believe to be a powerful, all-powerful creator. Max Planck, who is considered to be the father of quantum theory, said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." End quote. So the material world that is acknowledged by all of us, the material world which we observe through the five senses, the material world of which we interpret through the physical, living, vibrant, intellectual, and emotional apparatus that we know as the brain, that is largely responsible for the shaping and cultivating of what we consider to be reality for us. This brain is uh, not the creator of consciousness. Consciousness was created by God, and consciousness is experienced by us as a divine spiritual species that controls or that projects this reality through the persona that is created within us that we call the brain, which is our physical interface to this world. But it is an intermediary, in my opinion, between the spirit and the physical dimension. So science is beginning to discuss kind of what mystics have disclosed for many, many ages, and that is consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain. It's the womb of existence itself. There's a book called The Case Against Reality in 2019, where a cognitive scientist named Donald Hoffman argues that what we perceive is not an objective reality at all, but a user interface designed by evolution to hide the truth in order to help us to survive. Powerful. He says, we have been shaped to have perceptions that hide the truth and guide adaptive behavior, end quote. The power behind that statement is that, and this is a long, could be a long drawn out or long protracted conversation, but it's a good one. Even what our brain interprets as reality has been programmed with a series of beliefs and symbols, like the cognitive science of behavior and cognition itself, and how we know what we know, we can identify what we can identify. For example, now there's a wall in front of me. How do I know that's a wall? There's a computer in front of me. How do I know that's a computer? You are taught early in life, and again, I don't want to get into this vast subject. It's deep, and I don't want to broach the subject today. But what you and I know as reality today, we've been programmed. We've been programmed by the consciousness of others. We adopted it into our intellectual, psychological framework. And now we interpret reality based on us, what we subjectively think is a person, place, thing, a truth, a non-truth, factual or non-factual. So thus the world we perceive is not the world as it is, but the world as it appears to consciousness. Individual expressions of consciousness are what you and I represent as spirits who have a partnership and a oneness with the Creator, who could not exist without the spark of life and without the spirit and essence of the Creator inside of us and a part of us. We are conscious beings connected again to an infinitely conscious Creator. What we should understand, therefore, is that what we believe to be is, what we have decided to be is our experience. One man's trash is another man's what? Treasure. It's a subjective reality that defines moment by moment, point by point, situation by situation, what it believes it is and lives it out in a psychosomatic experience, a spiritual and then psychosomatic experience, or also we might say a psychospiritual somatic experience. The world of quantum physics is beautiful, considered in many to be the spiritual science. But then there's quantum mechanics that helps us to understand that the world is malleable. In considering the subatomic realm in quantum mechanics, there was an experiment done called the double slit experiment. A lot of you all have heard of this. It's not just taught in scientific circles, it's taught in spiritual and metaphysical circles now. And it shows that particles behave like waves until observed, at which point they choose a definite state. So from this, recognizing the subatomic particles started reacting differently when they put an apparatus to observe it. When they say observe, they don't mean by the naked eye. They're talking about an instrument that was created that can see on the subatomic world. It the subatomic particles changed the way they acted. And when the observation device was moved, then it adjusted its behavior again. So it didn't just show up as a particle, it could also collapse and become a wave. It was then surmised from there, deduced from there, that observation creates reality. There is a consciousness even on the subatomic level. And I want to pause here for station identification to say that the Indians and other spiritual cultures for years have told us that trees are alive, water is alive, so forth and so on. But then another belief system arises to say that that's pantheism, that's paganism, so forth and so on. When science is starting to prove, even through this experiment, subatomic particles reacted differently, which in some cases, many cases, indicates there's a level of consciousness and awareness, not maybe not to the level of sentience that we have or awareness that we have, but it exists on a subatomic level. John Wheeler, the great physicist and mentee of Einstein, put it like this: no phenomenon is a real phenomenon until it is an observed phenomenon. End quote. Powerful, powerful, powerful thing to understand and recognize that even what we phenomenalize, even what we observe, even what we attach definition to, or start looking at to attach definition to, becomes what we believe it to be or desire for it to be. So it's a powerful thing to understand that the field of possibilities, family, can be collapsed. And when I say collapse, I mean can be come a multiplicity of outcomes just by our observation. So consider this truth: you are not in the world, the world is in you. Powerful, powerful, powerful. So understand that perception is our inner reality, but it's an inner reality that becomes a lens that shapes the external world. For a long time, psychologists have been talking about what's called cognitive biases, and how cognitive biases and mental models shape what we notice, what we ignore, even what we think is possible. I want you to understand right now that your bias toward a situation bends you toward it and bends it toward you. And this is why you can continue to see the same results from the same bias. You are creating it. It's not anything external to you. It's not the divine creator in another place. It's not an evil spirit. It's you creating it. Daniel Kahneman says in a wonderful book, Thinking Fast and Slow, 2011, he describes how the mind uses shortcuts, heuristics to interpret important information quickly, often at the cost of accuracy. Again, it's we are processing information based on bias and at times overlooking other things that are in the same frame, other things that are possible to us, other things that are accessible to us, because we are too busy being about the business of relying upon what's normal, comfortable, and usual for us. My goodness. It's why two people, family, can see the same thing and see different things. It's why two people can walk down the same road and have different experiences. Because what your curated, subjective mind perceives and observes along the pathway is going to be different than what somebody else's subjective mind has curated and created in terms of perception for them. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Consider this. So Robert Anton Wilson coined the phrase reality tunnels, and this is where we'll stop today. He says we're all looking from the point of view of our own reality tunnel. When we begin to realize that we can then begin to open our minds to possibilities we had previously rejected, end quote, from Prometheus Rising, 1983. So we all exist in reality tunnels. The food you like is a part of the reality tunnel. The way you love and who you love is a part of the reality tunnel. What you consider to be acceptable and unacceptable is a part of your reality tunnel. What you consider to be bad, good, or otherwise is a part of your reality tunnel. It's a very subjective experience, and reality is created from that experience. It's just as simple as that. You think many things are bad because you've been taught it's bad. And it's not that we don't share universally concepts of what's not good for our species. Okay. But at the same time, there are other things you may have been taught are improper or inappropriate. You've been conditioned to believe that. And when you see that, you not only have an intellectual response to it, you have a biological response to it because you again are the body, and the body is going to live out neurologically. It's going to live out neurologically what you believe intellectually. And that's why that you can be feeling something, and yet in that moment it's wrong because your subjective interpretation of a situation is flawed. For example, the person walking down the street is just as fearful of you as you are of them. And in your mind, you might think, you may have profiled that they are violent. I have to be careful. They could hurt and harm me. When in reality, that person is as fearful of you as you are of them. But your subjective reality painted use its perception again is the brushstroke that painted the reality for you. I need to be fearful, and your body carried it out. So I want you to understand we all exist and live in these reality tunnels. I would leave this stuff for your consideration today. Reality is not a universal broadcast, it's a personalized transmission. We think reality is generated or being generated from outside of us, when the truth be told, reality is being generated from within us. It's coming from us. And again, we're going to get deeper and deeper into these conversations. I'm stimulating thought for you right now, things that I really, really, really want you to consider. Reality is not a universal broadcast. Yes, I believe in collective consciousness. And yes, I believe in the creator God sources. I believe in all these things. But you've been endowed with these incredible powers and abilities as a spiritual being. And you are personally transmitting what you believe every day, every second, every moment, every hour. As he thinketh in his heart, so is he. And from this thinking space, we create and we manifest. So, what you're considering to be somebody else's thoughts are your thoughts. What you might be considered to be somebody else's fault, is it possible that it's your fault? What you are considering to be something that is harmful and hurtful and injurious to you that's done by somebody else, is it possible that it wasn't good, but you interpreted it in such a way that you allowed it to hinder you, limit you, and debilitate you, that you defined it as, this is so hurtful, this is so bad that I can't go on, or I can't accomplish this, or I can't do this? Is it possible that if you changed your reality inwardly, that you would change the external components, the cooperative components you see in the world, that you would see then the situations and circumstances start shifting in terms of reality for you externally because you did it internally first? Hmm. Something for you to consider today. If you're going to shift your reality, you're going to have to shift your perceptions. You're going to have to shift your frame of mind. You're going to have to shift your mindset. You're going to have to shift your schemata. You're going to have to shift your paradigm. It is not for you to rely upon other people to change. For when you change, then inwardly they change. It is not for you to rely upon a response from what you consider to be external stimuli for the job to just pop up. It can pop up if you believe for it to pop up. But some of y'all are waiting on things and waiting on people when you don't understand. You're still waiting because you've created a situation where you're waiting. You are transmitting now into the world, out of your skull, out of your pericranium, thoughts that is being picked up by a conscious collective universe, that is being picked up by the spiritual dimension, that is being picked up by the spiritual field that you are part of as a spiritual being, that the creator has allowed you to have this experience, to co-create and manifest this experience. You're doing it every moment, every second right now. So if you want to change what you consider to be three-dimensional physical reality or that physical construct, then the spiritual and mental has to shift first. Mm, yeah, yeah. Just thoughts that I want you to consider. Just thoughts I want you to ponder. This has been part one. We're going to get to part two next time. But in the meantime, maybe you should consider what you've been thinking, what you've been imagining, what you've been feeling, and what you've been speaking. Don't forget to follow me at theaggreen.com, theaggreen.com. Go there and visit the website. Also, excuse for me, follow me at AG Green now. And if you have not already liked, like and subscribe to this channel. I got more and more good stuff coming on the way to you. Shalom, peace, wholeness, and prosperity. I'll see many of you on the next Divine You podcast. So guess what? We out. Enjoy another